If timber's hitting the ground, you bet two brothers are around.
You betcha. Ready?
I'm here from Two Brothers Outdoors. Now Rick always does the commentating, so today's my turn. Okay. I had to twist his arm and make him be the video man, but not today. Alright, so here we have the HFE 30 Homesteader. The saw, it's a piece of junk. Don't buy it. Go get the Patriot sawmill like I have. I haven't had not one bit of problem with it. Cuts straight, cuts nice. Never gave me a problem whatsoever. And here's for the trick of the day. See this square? I put this on my dogs. And then I went, voila. And I made them round. See?
Oh, you're a magician.
No, for real. Here's Rick. He's going to do the commentary. I suck at it.
Hey guys, how's it going? This is Rick with Two Brothers Outdoors. You just saw Tim. He did a fine commentary. This is a Hud-son HFE 30. We are at the 2-year mark with this saw. We've had several requests for reviews of how's the saw doing. So at the 2-year mark, and we've lost count how many thousands of board feet of wood we've cut. We've cut a lot of logs. All right, so we're going to do a commentary. We're going to do a review. So the first thing I want to do is I want to point out the failures that we have found with this mill. Failure number 1. This gearbox, when this winch comes from the factory on the saw, this gearbox is dry. There is no grease whatsoever in this gearbox. Now, the instructions of the mill tell you to put grease here and to grease this occasionally, but it says nothing about the inside of this gearbox. Well, right at the 1-year mark, a little past 1-year mark, the gears in here stripped out from being dry. I noticed it was getting hard to go up and down, but didn't realize why. Thought it was lack of grease or oil on this. Didn't help. Finally, when the gear stripped, opened it up. But on a good note, even though it was beyond a year, Hud-son did warranty it without a problem. Sent me a brand new one. No cost out of my pocket whatsoever.
Now, isn't that a different style too?
It's a little different style gearbox, different manufacturer. But I took it apart, and the gears are dry in this one too. So I took the cover off, greased the gears, put the cover back on. I've talked to somebody else who has a HFE Hud-son Homesteader also. Upon our first video talking about this, he did the same thing. Took his gearbox apart when he got his mill. It was dry also. So we saved him a little bit of headache. So you get the HFE 30 or any of the Hud-son mills, check that gearbox. All right, failure number 2. Come on over here. Motor mount's broke. Now, what they use is 2 pieces of flat bar separately welded on this bar down here for motor mounts. They crack, they broke. I welded them, put a little brace on them. They cracked and broke again, so I ended up welding this heavy plate on here. Haven't had a problem with it since. So, if you got the 2 H-style flat bar motor mounts on here, if it's like my mill, they're going to break. Unfortunately. Third failure on this mill. These little backer bearings down here behind the blade, they're a sealed bearing. Don't know why. Water from the coolant penetrates the seals. The bearings rust up, seize up, and we've replaced the bearings with ones that we bought off the internet. They do the same thing, so it's an inherent problem. So what I do is each time I go to fire the mill up and saw, I put a couple drops of oil here, a couple of drops of oil on this one, and that seems to stop the problem. So those are the only failures that we have run in.
The wiggling, the shaking of the
Oh, that's not a failure. That's just a structural
design
thing.
flaw.
Okay, so that was the failures that we faced within the first year. Now, first modification I made. These dogs and knees come with this square block on them.
Hey, we just saw that.
Yeah, I know. All right, so this is welded on this right here. And what that does is when you raise the dog, it raises the knee. When you drop the knee, it drops the dog. That drove me crazy. You put a log on the mill, there's nothing to stop it from rolling off the back. Also, sometimes you want to adjust this knee a little differently than this to get the flat side of the cant square against the knee. I was having problems getting it square against the knee, which if you watch our previous video, you can see what I'm talking about when we were cutting the pine. I was showing that on the video. So what I did was I cut this square off, went down to the hardware store, bought some black iron pipe, had them cut them 4 inches long, welded them onto the dogs. Now, through trial and error, you have to weld the dog bar close to the front of this pipe. Otherwise, you won't be able to clamp when you get close to the knee. And you want to lean the dog just a little bit forward. If you look at this, it leans just a little bit forward. It's not square with the pipe. That also helps when you're just clamping like a single 1-inch board that you want to etch, or flitch they call it, that you want to etch. So make sure you lean those forward and put them to the front of the pipe. I did it on both dogs and both knees. That allows me to put the knees up like that, roll the log forward until it stops on the knee. That keeps them from going off the back of the mill. Now on this mill, when we got it, this track is like a tank. It's very heavy angle iron. I blocked it under each junction point of the track and the ends. Haven't had a bit of problem with it. But what I did have a problem was leveling it. It doesn't come with leveling screws. You have to use boards and wedges and all kinds of crap. So what I did was I drilled and tapped the angle iron right here, and I built a bolt that has a flat washer on the bottom like a leg that rolls, and I can adjust the height of the mill. I got a 2-inch play in that. I can go up and down 2 inches on each bolt. Each place I have a block, I've installed these bolts. It wasn't a hard thing to do. I just, like I said, just drilled the angle iron, tapped it 1/2 inch, and then on the back side of the bolt, I put a washer, welded a nut to the washer, big flat washer, and it acts as a leg. It just helps to level it. It's not necessary, but for me, I liked it. Now, another thing that we modified. The mill comes this post, this post. This is not here. As we're sawing, got into a heavy log, the mill would start chucking like this. It didn't affect the cut, it didn't affect anything, but it did bother me that it was moving so much, because when metal moves, eventually welds will break. So what I did was I actually made it an actual 4-post design. I added the top and the bottom and these solid tubes, and then a cross brace here, and that stopped the chucking. Well, after I did this, I went to visit somebody with a mill, and he had an Oscar Pro, and lo and behold, the Oscars come with the actual 4-post. They've got this incorporated in their design. So
basically you're saying that the home versions of the mills,
well,
not the Pro lines, come with only
the Homesteader was built with the 4-post. Wasn't meant to be used a lot, I guess, or not hammered or whatever, but I don't think it would hurt anything, but eventually I was afraid that the welds were going to crack from the movement. So I put this on. Come to find out, the Oscar mills, the pros, they're built with these on there. So I think they probably left these off to make the mill a little cheaper for the homesteader, somebody that wanted to buy it to put on the homestead to make boards for houses or whatever they're doing. So I also made my own track sweeps. These are pretty easy to make. This is an old piece of rubber mud flap. I just made a piece of metal, bent it, and put a spring on the back side right here with one screw in there, so it got tension on it. But all it does is just sweep the sawdust under the track. If you don't put sweeps on your mill, the sawdust will build up on the track, build up in the wheel. You'll start cutting boards that aren't straight because this side of the mill is actually raising up. So the track sweeps, I put one on the back, one on the front, just on this side. Seem to work out just fine. Wait, pause it.
One more modification.
Okay, so another thing we found out, these cable guides right here, and here, and there's one other one right here. Put a couple drops of oil on them each time you go to use them. They've got plastic bushings in them instead of bearings, and the oil keeps them from wearing those bushings out. So that's a maintenance item every time you go to use the sawmill. Just put a couple drops of oil on all three of them, and that'll fix that. Now, one more modification I made. This housing right here, let me see the camera a minute. This housing right here has got a place for the sawdust to come out. But what happens is the sawdust blows straight out of the bottom. We get on like the third log, and the sawdust builds up to the point to where this is actually plowing sawdust, and we have to shovel the sawdust out of the way.
Especially in the wintertime there.
Yes.
Oh, there's a good shot of it right there.
Especially in the wintertime. So what I did, I'm going to need the camera again.
Yeah, I just showed him. You cut the hole in the grate.
Yeah, the last modification I made is I notched that out. There's a baffle in there. All right, I'm just giving you a good view of it. I notched that out, and that causes the sawdust to blow straight out, not underneath it. That is a mega modification. I like it so much because now I'm not shoveling sawdust after 3 or 4 logs because it blows it out against here. Once this tarp is down after winter's over, that sawdust is leaving the mill completely. I'll be able to grab it with the tractor and move it. All right, so at 2-year mark and thousands and thousands and thousands of board feet of cutting, I am very happy with this mill.
You said thousands and thousands and thousands. That's
board feet.
3,000.
More thousands, a lot of thousands. We lost count. I lost count after 60,000 board feet. It was supposed to be a hobby mill, and this is supposed to be a hobby, and it turned out to be
A hobby.
hey, can you cut some wood for me? And that's what it turned into.
Sure.
The only other complaint I got is that this engine, it's a 13.5 horsepower. It's supposed to be 14 horsepower, is what they advertise it as. It's 13.5 Briggs. The engine's fine, it runs okay, but it's the bare minimum horsepower for this mill. So if you get into a super wide cut, which we do sometimes, you got to go real slow. It runs against the governor on the engine, and it will actually drop the engine down. Doesn't have enough torque. I'm looking for a V-twin to put on it now. I wish I had gotten the one with the 23 horse. I guess that's available. I know it's available on the Warrior, and it's available on the Oscar Pro, but I don't know if it's available on the 30, HFE 30 Homesteader. But I'm going to go with a V-twin as soon as I can find one, and upgrade the motor just a little bit. But all in all, it's been a good mill. I've watched and seen and interact with a lot of people that have a lot of band mills, and they've all got their pros, they've all got their cons. So it's just a matter of personal choice. This mill, as it comes out of the box, when you get it, it works fine. It was all built. I just had to put the track together. It was a usable mill. All the modifications I did were to make it work.
All right, so the question is, if you had to buy this mill all over again, would you?
If I had to buy this mill all over again at the price I got it for, absolutely I'd buy it again. It cuts accurate, it cuts well, and I've got no problem with it. The track, like I said, the track is built like a tank. I wish they had put this heavy a track under all their mills.
So overall, what do you give this sawmill?
I give this a solid A. I'm sure there's better mills out there, and I'm sure there's worse mills out there. And like I said, they've all got their problems. They all got their pros and cons. I've seen pros and cons on the Wood Miser. I've seen pros and cons on every mill out there. I've even had people compliment the Harbor Freight Mill. Oh, geez, I got the Harbor Freight Mill, made a few modifications, and it works great. So they've all got their pros and cons. But like I said, if I had to buy another mill at the price I wanted to spend, I would buy another one of these without a problem. All right, guys, that's our 2-year review on the HFE 30 Hudson. Any questions, feel free to email me at lumberjack56@yahoo.com.
Smash that like button.
And give us a thumbs up. That is a like button. Subscribe.
Oh, ding the bell, ding ding.
Yeah, if you want to see other
You love that
videos we
bell.
put out, hit the bell and subscribe.
You love that bell.
All right, guys, thanks.